In this episode, we talk about some topics that Reynad, who is the creator of the Bazaar, discussed in his recent Q&A. Mostly we talk about upgrading, but there's a couple of other things in there too. If you want to check out his full Q&A, there will be a link in the description below. Now, let's dive under the surface. Yeah, so Reynad recently did a Q&A, and he's discussed a lot of things, but something that really stuck out to us was his discussion of upgrading, and he doesn't really like upgrading, is kind of the whole gist we get from it. He wants it to be like, it sounds like he debated not even putting it into the game, and he wants to keep it extremely minimal. Sort of, I get the vibe that it kind of goes against what this game is supposed to be, which is more pivoting builds rather than your typical like sort of auto battler where you reroll and just try to get upgrades over and over again.
Like, this game originated as a deck builder, and in a physical deck builder you usually cannot upgrade your cards because, well, those are literal cards in front of you, so you cannot stack them on top of each other. So I suppose that was the initial idea. Like, he wanted to have the mechanic of increasing your power to be simply getting new items. But I suppose he, as he said in the Q&A, like, he knew that most people that are interested in auto battlers are really like the idea of upgrading their items or units or whatever is in that particular game. So those are the main dopamine hits, as he calls them, and I would agree with it. You know, I really like the feeling of upgrading my items, but after hearing his take on it, what you call it? Like, I went into a run and tried to apply his idea of, upgrading my board, and I actually found a bit more success. I think I'm more open to changing my setup while also understanding that going to merchants every time and just looking for those upgrades is actually detrimental to your power. And how would you describe it?
Yeah, I had the same sort of like thought process, I guess, because especially pre like this current patch where a lot of rerolls have disappeared. I mean, like, to a kind of disgusting point. Now that I look back at it, I was going to shops and just looking for, I have my board's set. I'm just going to go to every shop and reroll, and you could get upgrades fairly like decently. So I would just do that when in reality, I was probably like lessening my fun and lessening the like power I could have had. And this current patch definitely with like the less rerolls and everything definitely makes it feel bad to go into shops with that mindset. And we talked about this in I think the last episode. And Reynad says something like players are able to point out the problem, but have the worst possible idea for the solution.
Yeah.
And I think maybe our solution was terrible, but we knew what the problem was, but we couldn't get to the solution.
You know what? I think our solution wasn't like the worst. I think that given that we didn't really understand his position, we made some assumptions regarding the game. Based on the things that we actually saw, we experienced, right? So we saw that there are tiers of items in the game. We saw that there are like monster loot items which upgrade your one particular item, or like maybe upgrade your leftmost item, upgrade your leftmost bronze or silver item, those types of rewards. Like all of this was in the game, right? So we came with the assumption that this was always meant to be, and this is how Reynad wanted the game to function. While apparently this was sort of a compromise between his principles and expectations of players. And I guess, well, as we are and were the on the side of the players, we had those expectations. But I suppose that like if we were to push the game into this upgrading route, as in like we mostly focus about building a tall engine, let's call it, because you mostly building engines in the game instead of wide engine, so many moving parts that add cumulatively to your outcome. So this wide engine approach was what Reynad wanted to happen, and I probably didn't see that properly, in the sense that, like, I tried to, maybe not try to, but I think I was a bit narrow-minded before, and now I can see more of the game that was hidden behind the veil, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel basically the exact same way. I feel like after playing so much the last month too, like I had ideas about what the game was before I played it, and now I have this whole other idea of what it should be. And like I think a month and a half ago, I would have said something to the effect of kind of what he said, where like upgrades should be rare and stuff. And now that I've played it, I'm always fishing for upgrades. I've kind of fell into like I want the dopamine hit of getting the upgrade because it feels so good. So and we kind of the solution, well, you more came up with it, but like the solution you came up with kind of exists in the game already, which is like the like a extra sort of role for if you'll get an upgrade, which it sounds like
Well,
they're completely
Reynad
removing.
said that it was in the game, but right now it isn't. So at some
Oh.
point, it probably, like, maybe it was during the closed beta, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was only during friends and family. But what he said precisely is right now, so on this current patch, it's definitely not in the game.
Gotcha. I was thinking it was still in, but that makes sense because it does feel super rare to find an upgrade generally anyway. It feels rarer than the last patch, even without the like reroll stuff, but maybe I'm just feeling that. He did say that upgrading bronze tier items, I guess as a level up reward, is something they probably like planning to keep for now, just so you can get the upgrades to those lower rewards, lower items that are kind of essential to your board. Because I saw somebody mention this, and he talked about it in the stream that I didn't really think about, but like it's sometimes it's better to sell the item and try to get the better version of it in the later days, which is really bad.
Yeah, it is. One thing that we need to remember is when you get an item, even at bronze tier, its cooldown probably is going to stay the same across all tiers. So upgrading usually is going to affect the raw numbers on the card. And some cards have more numbers than others. So a narwhal is going to attack, so it's not going to be that significant. However, a crow's nest has this crit chance that it gives to other items. So this is going to increase. So, upgrading some items is more valuable than others. Therefore, you don't really need to push for having a whole board made of gold and diamond items. Like, some of your pieces can easily be bronze and still function exactly the same as if they were diamond. Well, maybe exactly the same is a stretch, but essentially the same. Let's take a pulse rifle, for example, for dueling. The main reason for playing pulse rifle, well, unless you're doing a weapon build, but you want this pulse rifle to trigger 3 times to accelerate your core, 3 seconds, right? So even at bronze tier, this pulse rifle is 4 seconds, and whenever it's next to your only friend, it's going to have multicast ×2, right? So
Yeah.
at diamond, it's instead of having like 10 damage, it's going to have like 80 or whatever. So okay, yeah, you're dealing a bit more damage, but at the later days, if you're not invested in weapon damage, that 70 damage difference is negligible. Like, yeah, it might help you in some narrow cases, but usually you want this to be your engine enabler. And coming back to my previous point, and which is sort of parroting the Reynad's point, like you can easily have a suboptimal item for now, and just, after 2 or 3 days, you think to yourself, what else can I put into this slot? So maybe there's a tool that would help me, or maybe there's a small item that would help me. So look for this particular merchant, but not on the next hour, because not much is going to change in terms of power levels. But do that after 2 or 3 days, and it's you're most likely going to find a substitution that's going to actually help you. And if you're open-minded, and you're not doing something really narrow, like, let's say, monitor lizard poison that's accelerated by the companion core, so you need to have a lot of hastening. However, even that has a couple of variations. So you can do a monitor lizard with raise, but you can do a monitor lizard with bulldozer and a lot of small friends, or you can do a monitor lizard with race car and, for example, a cape next to it. So, those are 3 different engines that are funneling towards the same goal, essentially. So are they still the same build, or are those 3 different builds? You have to think that for yourself. I think there was
It's
a
like
lot
the
of things.
ship of ship of thesis or whatever, where it's like if you take it all apart and like rebuild it with all new parts, is it still the same
Yeah.
thing? I think what I wanted with this game was really the like initially was really the pivoting aspect of it. I don't ever find myself pivoting hard in the late game. And I think like I kind of was blaming it on the game, and I think it's my fault to be honest, because I really want to do like those pivots and Vanessa builds into what's the boulder, like those
Hmm.
types of builds, because you can only get those items late game. So
Yeah.
and they're large items, you know, like the boulder dam, things like that. So you kind of have to pivot at least to some degree to make those items work. And I
Yeah.
don't know. I usually find myself getting stuck with like getting attached to, you know, lately it's been Monitor Lizard, let's be honest, but you know, any item, and then it's like, well, I can't let this go. And even if I'm losing, I'm like, but I can make this work.
You know
And
what?
maybe sometimes you just can't.
Yeah, I mean, Reynad had like two different statements for that particular approach. So first was like, first of all, people are scared of losing on tokens, so they usually leave around 5 spaces in their stash to be, you know, prepared for that occasion. However, like this made me think if there are certain pieces later on in the game, so this like, sort of goes into the second point. If I don't forget, I'm going to say it in a moment. But like if there are certain pieces that you know that enable certain interactions, so let's take into the considerations those 3 Monitor Lizard builds that I mentioned. So Companion Core and Monitor Lizard are mostly like required for that build. However, well, there's another slow build that might use your little snail, but let's focus on the lizard. So you can pair lizard with bulldozer, you can pair lizard with rayscale and this cape. That's a little combo that works really well, but you can use it without a cape as well. And you know, let's say the bulldozer and rayscale, and if you find them along the way, like let's say you encounter mod squad and you think to yourself, okay, I can get a build there, so let's fight this guy, and if I get the bulldozer, I can keep it for later, and maybe I can arrange nice friend build. Maybe I find a rayscale in the literal first encounter. Why won't I grab it? And maybe if I get something else useful, I can do something with that. Like there are like this is sort of a knowledge check of the game, I think. Like you have to know the item pool and you have to recognize some center pieces where you can, you know, put them on your board and build around them. And before you actually stick them on the board, because on their own they don't do that much, but with some host of supporting items, they can do wonders. So, you know, put them away in your stash for a bit and, you know, look for other pieces. And if something else catches your eye, maybe swap that previous centerpiece that you thought of building around and put this new one in if it's better in your, you know, in your opinion.
I've noticed as I've gotten better at the game, I've been doing that more often, and my stash is usually like. Also, it might be at like part of the fact that the economy is kind of weird in the game right now, and it's really easy to get a lot of money, so you can always buy a lot of stuff. But I noticed my stash is normally very full now, and I'm constantly trying to like swap out items and make the perfect build, like you said, like with a bulldozer, maybe even if it's not fitting in the build right now. I'm like, well, I'll keep it there because I might not see it again, and I know it can work with the right loadout. So
One thing I want to add is when you finally focus down on something that you like and you think works well, it is possible that 1 or 2 items can actually be swapped, even if like you think the engine works, but maybe swapping one part can improve your engine in unexpected way. So like let's say taking this Monitor Lizard as it's the like one on my mind right now, like one slot could be, let's say, duct tape. So by having those quickly charging friends around it, you can get a lot of shield, right? But if your duct tape is low level or you didn't upgrade it enough, it's probably going to fall off at some point. So even if at the early game it was doing really well, maybe at some point you can swap it for something else. Or maybe you won the lottery and just hit the chrono barrier that's diamond tier. Well, maybe sacrificing 2 slots on your board is worth for like disallowing your opponent to ever use items, you know? Even if it's going to make your engine a bit slower, making your opponents slower even more is worth it. So
Yeah.
people rarely, I think about this part. Like, you don't need to make yourself faster every time. You can make your opponent slower.
Yeah, I've started to come to that conclusion, and I think it's sort of like the more you play, the more you feel out the game. I'm a very like visual person, so sometimes I read the like what the cards do, and my mind just can't process what's happening, and like I have to like stick it on the board and just try it. And if it doesn't work, like, well, you have monster fights, you have plenty of days, like you can take a loss every here and there just to like test stuff out.
Yeah, you know what you just said, like reminded me of something that I was pondering like a day or two ago. Like, I think that since the closed beta opened, we as players are so focused on winning that we forgot about playing, I think. And let me explain what I mean. Like, if some strategy is really strong and is fairly easy to assemble, like Monitor Lizard, care a lot about winning and not about learning the game and the intricacies about it. And I am guilty of disregarding many useful items and like useful interactions just because I like perceived myself being strong or like not really feeling like engaging with those synergies, let's call it. So an example from yesterday, I was playing dually because, well, who wouldn't this patch? And I had like one slot left which I didn't really know what to do with. So I just put a water cooler in it, and it was just granting me HP. And I came across sparring partner, and I just realized that sparring partner is ideal place for using water cooler. It didn't occur to me before, like I can just simply have water cooler in my inventory, and even if it's a later day and it's usually not that worth it to use it at all, but if you come across a sparring partner, it is guaranteed like 40-second fight. So you're going to scale your HP for a lot. And I managed to like 700 HP to my total at that particular time. So that's like 2 level up rewards.
Dude, I never thought about that. I never thought about using the sparring partner to farm on Dually, because you could also do that with the GPU if you have like a, not GPU, it's the thing that adds damage based on value.
It's this chip, right? Or like this memory card?
Memory card, I think that's right. Yeah, I never thought about that. In fact, I normally find myself avoiding sparring partner on Dually.
Yeah, but see, the sparring partner, when it was a monster event, like it appeared along other monsters, you didn't really want to go there because it didn't grant you XP. But now, whenever it's on the off hour, let's call it, like as we established, you don't really want to force merchants as much. Like this, what we learned. And sometimes a free option, like getting 3 gold or something, isn't that enticing. You may think to yourself next time when you do a run, why don't I put one thing that scales in my stash, and whenever I run across sparring partner, I'm going to just put that thing in and just scale it for a lot to not waste that hour.
I mean, it makes sense. I use Walter Cooler a lot, actually. Anyway, I didn't even think about going to the sparring partner to do that. There's also sparring partner is also weird because it doesn't have any items. You're just attacking him, so some builds are super bad against him.
But it doesn't really matter, because if you're not looking for gold, you're only looking for time in a fight, right? So you may deal 1 damage across all those 40 seconds of the fight, but as long as your water cooler or memory card or whatever, advances, then you're good, I think.
Yeah,
you should be.
It's guaranteed until the sandstorm, basically. So I don't know if I think the sandstorm's the normal length in that fight. Sometimes it feels longer, but
I mean, it depends on whether you can, outlast that storm. But like, I think on average you can withstand around 5 to 10 seconds of sandstorm.
Yeah, sandstorm's a lot stronger now, dude. It's kind of crazy.
But one thing I would like to ask you, because we established right now, and we we agree with Reynad that upgrading should be approached mentally a bit differently than we might have done that previously. However, like, the game speaks for itself. and the game says, look, friend, more rewards. And you take those poison toxins, you take those cinders, and you upgrade your one item, and you stack it up tall. So, like, what gives? On one hand, the game apparently promotes churning out items and finding new ones that might slightly alter your build. But on the other, it gives out rewards that sort of require you to focus on one item very frequently. So that's a dissonance in my mind. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And the monster loot is the big culprit there. And it's hard to like it's like with the the toxins that you put on like usually you're putting on monitor lizard probably. And it's like you can buff monitor lizard so far. It's already a great item, but it's like there's no chance that anything else is gonna be better in terms of a poison build because you can I've had monitor lizards that are like 50 before you have
50?
toxic
Those
on
are
them.
rookie numbers. Like my record was around 100, like 120, something like that.
Good God. I've had like 100 with the toxic enchant, like 100 and something, but
But
yeah, it's
usually
just
you can do with like 40, and that's enough. 30, 40.
unless you're facing other monitor lizards that are 100
That's
like
true.
constantly.
That's true.
Yeah, so I think they were just testing, like just trying stuff, and I'm really hoping probably those monster loot rewards are gone or are vastly changed because it's crazy that like the upgrade like does nothing for monitor lizard basically, and then the toxins are just like make it by fault. Like I find myself just like getting the toxins in anticipation of getting monitor lizard.
Right.
It's not a great way to play, I don't think, like in like long
No,
term for the game.
definitely. But like the main part I was interested in is that on one hand there are systems that encourage you to sell your old items and acquire new ones, while other systems promote sticking with your items, like keeping your board roughly the same, like choosing one or two centerpieces early and just stacking upgrades on top of them. And I understand that this is exactly the meeting point that Reynad was talking about, but still, like, they cannot be equal. I think one has to be supporting the other unless there's going to be imbalance, in the sense that if one of them is far stronger, we're going to expect that as a norm, and the other is going to be like, if you get like, let's say if getting I think he even talked about this, like if making upgrades 10 times rarer is going to make it as an exception, we're not going to care as much about them, but like leaving them roughly equal makes us expect both, I think, which is like, therefore when you go to a merchant you want an upgrade there, and when you level up you want to upgrade there as well. So I don't know, like, skills are a nice way of upgrading your board that adds to it without requiring you to.
I get what you're saying. You need to they need to condition the player for what they should expect, and right now it's just kind of confusing. And I think another example of that, of exactly what you're saying, I assume this is still in the game, I haven't played much Vanessa, but where she has like take away 10% of your health and give your weapons like a certain like amount of damage and crit.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah, that really encourages you to like find weapons, stick with them, because nothing else is going to compete with them anymore. So
it's not the thing that you buff your weapons, but the fact that you have to pay health for buffing your weapons makes you feel bad for selling them, because like you paid for those upgrades, you didn't get them for free, you paid for them, and now you're like throwing them away, like you're losing that health again, sort of, and it feels twice as bad.
Yeah, and Vanessa already doesn't have much health, so it's like you kind of gotta balance that. I don't know, maybe that's something that should be reworked. I'm not really sure, but
I was thinking, and that's like, maybe those monster loot rewards should be like skills in a sense that, but the UI doesn't really support that. But like, instead of selling your extract to grant you your one item poison, maybe it should actually like passively increase your poison by 1 or something. Like, even if you sell that item, the next item that comes in the, let's say, leftmost slot or whatever is going to get that buff. But it would be a lot of like this memory work if you don't actually display on your screen what buffs you have. But like, already skills sort of do that. So maybe like removing monster loot at all would be okay, but on the other hand, like that's huge part of like reward structure, which you would have to write anew. But then what do you put in that place if you do not grant like those fleeting upgrades, let's call them? So I think that's sort of like what do you call it, like a double-edged sword, let's say. Like on one hand it's helping, but there are flaws with it.
Yeah, this conversation makes me really happy. I'm not the one who has to make these decisions. I just get to play the game because I don't know, like you can see a pitfall every direction you take.
I mean, that's exactly game design. Like it's so much like threading the needle, you know?
I guess a final thought here is that they mentioned it's going to be a lot of big patches in the future. So I have a feeling, we're going to keep changing huge things and trying new things. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it because it's like every week or two you get a new game, which is pretty fun. But yeah, just hope the next one's better than the last. They make a lot of improvements, so I think it'll be.
To be fair, like add to your statement, like Reynad said about this making 100 changes and getting 80 to 90 of them right, instead of just making 10 and getting all of them right. And I suppose maybe that's actually a good approach. Like in the future they don't need to make 100 changes every week. Then they can make 10 changes every day, and then at that point you never can actually catch up with the meta, right? If every day is a slightly different experience, then the power imbalance, not really, but like power levels aren't going to be strictly defined, which is probably going to allow for more skill expression with how the game behaves, not exactly what items are particularly good.
Yeah, keep it really fresh. And like the thing you're mentioning specifically is that like he talked about in the past about doing like live updates, basically where like you're in a run and then all of a sudden it updates and like you don't even really know. That's gonna they're gonna get to that point one day, and that's gonna be insane. So because right now it's like 3 hours downtime and 100 changes, but just tweak a merchant here, just tweak an item here,
I mean, let's see. I mean, I would prefer game not having downtime, but I understand that servers needs a bit of rest every now and again. So yeah,
and it's the team's first game, and it's a different type of game. I get it, but when you're addicted, it's hard.
Yeah, it's all right. So I mean, thank you for making this game, Reynad. Like we might be crying whiny babies on the internet, but like literally you made a really good job making this game. You sacrificed years of your life to bring us happiness, so you're better than Santa Claus.
Yeah, I think I'm not even kidding when I say I think this might be my favorite game I've ever played.
Oh yeah,
at least like I know it's early and I'm trying not to say that, but I can't stop playing it and I'm enjoying every second of playing it. Like I don't hate it. Like some games you play and you like start to hate them. I've never felt that this way, even with the pufferfish meta and the lizard meta. Like I've always just wanted to keep playing and keep doing stuff.
I'm a type of person who likes switches games a lot. Like I don't really do a main game. Like I'm not that type of guy. I enjoy doing new things. So like this game is, I think, the first one that kept me for so long, like playing every day. Like usually after a month of playing, I think I've had enough. Like I experienced everything that I wanted from the game and I moved to the next thing. And now we're like 6 weeks in and I still I'm craving more.
I thought I played a lot of Balatro, and I'm pretty sure I played more of this game in the last month than I played Balatro in maybe 3 or 4 months. So
yeah,
that's kind of, I mean, it's this game's insane. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on the upgrading. Are you a TFT player and just want to reroll 100,000 times? Or are you a Bazaar gamer and you want to pivot your build every day?
Like screw merchants. All my homies screw merchants. You know what I'm talking about, but I don't know.
Just get the free item. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on Nunhead's channel on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. See you then. So yeah, bye.
See ya.